The recording has started. So good morning, you all. Thank you all for joining the Arts and Parks 2025 info session. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your interest in applying for this program for this cycle. My name is Zach Frimmel. I use they, them pronouns. I am the grants project manager over at the Office of Arts and Culture. I manage the Arts and Parks program here on the arts side of things. I also manage the Arts at the Center program and then also the Civic Poet program. And before we dive into things, I'm going to let my colleagues over at the Department of Parks and Recreation introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to see you all here. My name is Temesgen. Work for Seattle Parks and Rec, and our main role in this entire process is to assist you with anything and everything having to do with the permitting of your parks. Again, excited to be here with you and looking forward to seeing how we can help.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Annabelle Borromeo, and I also work for Parks and Recreation, and I'm a grants and contract specialist. Welcome, everybody. Happy to see all of you this morning.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rigbe Malashu. I also work with Parks and Recreation as a grants and contract specialist. Welcome.
And I'm Carl Berquist. I'm with the event.
Oh, Carl, you might cut out.
There we go. I'm Carl Berquist with the event scheduling office, Seattle Parks and Rec, and I'm kind of the final step before your permit gets finalized for your event to be able to take place.
Right. Thanks, team. So yeah, let's dive in. Okay. So our roadmap for today is we're going to review the guidelines, which will include the eligibility criteria to apply. We'll kind of walk you through the online application of Flux, and then we'll kind of navigate the different parts of that application, and then some kind of looking ahead timeline for this process and program, and then we'll have a Q&A for you all to ask questions. Feel free to share questions in the chat throughout the presentation. We will address them on the spot if it's related to the particular topic we're looking at, if it's more individual, or we can also follow up with you with specific just feedback or just notes and discuss that as well. Yeah, so let's move on to the project guidelines. So also you'll see me looking up because I have my other screen up here with the PowerPoint. Okay, so this is a partnership to bring arts and cultural activities into the city of Seattle parks. This is for neighborhood arts councils, community-based groups, individuals, artists, organizations, kind of ad hoc groups, grassroots organizations, and such to apply. This is for park activations for things like festivals, cultural events, concerts, workshops, classes, etc. That celebrate the diversity and build community and enhance the visibility of neighborhoods and those communities. It's to help support under-resourced communities throughout the city. And then for project funding requests, there are different tiers for this program. There is a $2,000 tier for applicants with, it's more focused on less demonstrated experience producing events. We have a $4,000 level one, a $6,000 level one, and an $8,000 level one. All these increments have been increased since the last cycle. So we're excited to be able to provide a little bit more money for each one of these awards. Specifically for this $8,000 top tier award, we do want to share that if anyone has received, it used to be a $7,800 award. So if anyone's received a $7,800 award in the past, or for either 2023 or 2024 programming, we do require that there's a minimum of 12 hours of public programming over the course of at least 2 days. Those days don't have to be consecutive. They can be a Saturday and then a following Saturday. But just this is also kind of based off some community feedback throughout this program's history, and we can dig into that more as people have questions. And then projects must take place outside in an eligible City of Seattle managed park. Okay, so some eligibility criteria that we have. So applicants must be either Seattle-based or be doing regular programming in Seattle. You don't need to be a 501c3, but for contracting purposes, we do require that you have a federal tax ID to be able to execute that process. Fiscal sponsors are okay, but they're not required. And then, so as you all know, you can apply for different grants throughout the city, throughout different departments. So you are allowed to be funded through other Office of Arts and Culture programs or other Seattle Parks and Recreation programs, but you just can't get funding for the same project. And then this is kind of a newer thing. So if you have an open contract for Arts and Parks after December 31st, 2024, then we won't be able to be eligible to apply. Mostly that applies to just anyone who had to kind of postpone their event from this year. And then for project criteria, we do allow new and existing projects to apply for. You'll be considered for anything that maybe you've already presented at another park, maybe last year or in a different capacity. So you don't always have to do something brand new as part of your proposal. We do require that there is a significant arts and culture component to the project or event that you are proposing. And then the event or project needs to be free and open to the public as you're promoting it. You must have event insurance, as Carl shared, and then a park permit as well, and confirming that through the process with the Parks and Recreation. And then for this year, events and projects must take place between May and November 2025. There's a slight difference in this. It was open April to November, but we've pushed it back to May, giving a lot of weather challenges in the April seasons.
Hey, Zach,
Yes.
we got a question in the chat from Arlene. It says, what about an event that has free components and some paid components?
Good question. So the main event needs to be free and accessible to everyone. So there can't be any kind of financial barrier to get into the event. Some people, by paid component, I'm curious more what that is specifically, or we can again answer your questions kind of offline. But if there are some vendors or food that's being sold at the event, that's okay. But like the main event itself and the activations need to be free. Yeah, I think basically whatever the proposal of the workshop that you would be, if you're awarded for that particular workshop, that workshop needs to be part of the free and accessible aspect of it. Does that answer your question, Arlene? Good.
I was going to say another question came right after Arlene's second post from Mu Kong. Can organizations hosting charge a vendor fee at the event?
Let's see. As far as I know, so bear with me. There might be some questions. I'll have to follow up with people. This is my first go around with this program, as I'm new as of about 5 months ago. Charge a vendor fee at the event. Temesgen, do you have any insights into that specifically?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to speak for the arts and culture department, but oftentimes when there are items being sold we do charge a 10% fee of any vendors that are participating, so their sales. But I think the question is, can the organization, can the grant awardee charge vendors to participate in their event? Yeah, from a park standpoint, anyone selling, we actually ask for like a 10% a 10% fee of your gross sales, if that's happening. But yeah, I'm not sure how arts would want to respond to can a grant awardee accept vendor fees? Is that with the spirit of what's happening? And so that's what I would check with the team.
I can follow up with you on that question. I believe you can, but I don't want to give the wrong information about that right now. And then I see Ryan, do all participating artists need to be based in Seattle? No, just the eligibility specifically would be the applicant and the organization. They just need to be doing regular programming in Seattle or based in Seattle. Can participating artists and performers have their LLC or practice be located in another county, city? Yeah, again, this is mostly just focusing on the applicant. Of course, we encourage local artists and performers and for these events. Okay. Okay, so there is let's see, significant amount of questions here. So let's see here. Will the FAQs be posted online? The FAQs from this session can go up from alongside the video. Yes, we can do that. If you received Hope Corps funding, would that be included under funding for other programs? Again, if you've received Hope Corps funding, you're still eligible to apply for this. You just can't apply for the same project to be funded. And that's kind of just like a citywide policy that the city has. And then the last question we have right now is, our current budget is between 6,000 and 8,000. Are we able to request for the exact amount, or does it have to be one of those? It does have to be for one of these round numbers, either 2, 4, 6, or $8,000. And yes, VD, we'll post these responses and to these questions in a document on the webpage for Arts and Parks. Thank you, everyone. So moving on past eligibility, I'm going to kick it over to the Arts and Parks or the Parks and Rec team to kind of share a little bit more about the park locations and some eligible parks, ineligible parks, and then about park permitting and event insurance.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll chime in on preferred parks and ineligible, and then I'm gonna let our permitting extraordinaire, maybe say his piece about some of the permitting and insurance things. Could you go to the next slide? All right, so these are our preferred parks, and they're broken up by like region of a few different regions of the city. There's our list for the Southeast, Southwest, Central, and North. Preferred parks means these are parks that have been identified as being like the most underserved, or like those neighborhood and the populations that live there are most in need of recreation programming and whatnot. Or arts programming. So this is why they've been identified as the preferred parks. And correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, they would be, if your program is taking place there, you'd be eligible for some additional points in the scoring process. Zach, is that still the case? Okay, yeah. So these are our preferred parks, and again, because those are groups, again, neighborhoods and populations that are living there are facing the most barriers. That's why we've identified them as our preferred parks. Next slide, please. Ineligible. All right, so downtown and center city parks are not eligible for Arts and Parks funded projects because they have other funding sources available. Here's the long list, and all of this is in your guidelines, so please don't worry about writing it down and all that kind of thing. It's in the guidelines, so you can see them there. So these are our list of ineligibles. Next slide. Additionally, all like parks and playgrounds that are directly adjacent to community centers are also ineligible. The reason being, again, the point of these funds is to activate those neighborhoods that are in need of activation. And traditionally, all of this list of spaces are, because they're right next to community centers, there's already they're already generally pretty activated. If not the park, there's the community center. There's already some things going on in these spaces. So we feel the funds would be better used at parks that are not directly adjacent to community centers and stuff for those reasons. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, that's why these spaces are additionally also ineligible. So it's ineligible. Hope that makes sense. Can you go to the next one, please? All right. If you're awarded, so if you submit an amazing, or I say when you submit an amazing application, the panel loves it and they want to grant you an award, you need to secure a park permit and event insurance. I cannot stress this enough. We need to secure a park permit and event insurance, and this can take time. So I'm gonna kick it to Carl. Can you show the next slide real quick? Or is it not about that?
It's just it'll just be Carl kind of more verbally.
All right, yeah, and we'll be chiming in, yeah, but Carl's gonna try to take us down the main parts of getting permitted insurance, and we'll be here to support him.
Yeah, thanks, Temesgen. So I'm gonna send Zach, hopefully I for some reason can't put this document in the chat. And I don't know if you can bring up the insurance document I'm sending you, Zach. So I just want to make sure. Let's see here. So I just sent that. So high level on insurance. it's really important. I end up kind of being kind of the bad guy a little bit sometimes when it comes to insurance, but I want to be clear what's going on. I reject at least 50% of all the insurance that comes into the office on the first try, and that's not your fault. What it is that's because the insurance company's number one job is to not have to be responsible if anything were to go wrong. And so they want us to accept their insurance the way that they want to give it to us. And that's insurance is very legalese. One word, one single word can void an insurance document, which means that if something went wrong, the city would be responsible. And part of my role within the city is to basically make sure that we aren't held liable, that we actually have the insurance as a backup and can go from there. Um, Zach, if you can scroll down to like page 5. So this is a document that I think Arts and Parks, I think you send out to Temesgen, right? To everybody. So you'll get this document. It's definitely there. There are a few key components of this document that hopefully everybody can see. And I don't expect anybody to be insurance experts. God knows it took me a good probably year doing my job to really have an idea of what insurance is. This document is not designed for you to read and understand because there's a lot of legalese in it. It's kind of like being a surgeon. It's like you don't know how the surgeon does the surgeon stuff. This insurance document is kind of the same way, but this is written for your insurance agent. But some very high level pieces is where it says insured, that kind of that second top box. If you can highlight up a little higher, Zach, a little higher right there to your left. Yeah, so where it says insured, that has to be your organization's name. We have a few people that use kind of a fiscal sponsor. So like say Seattle Parks Foundation or Sustainable Seattle or something like that. If it says their name there, it still needs to say your name, your company name, because basically what that insurance would be doing is it would be covering the Seattle Park Foundation and not you. And since you're the one putting on the event, the insurance wouldn't work. Um, the first large row of boxes there, just that next row down, Zach. Yeah, this large row of boxes. So that top layer, you need to have $1 million on that right hand side. That first red line on the right side needs to say $1 million. If you are planning on having a bounce house, that needs to be 2 million. And so 1 million is pretty standard. You can get online insurance in as little as 15, 20 minutes online. And there's just literally hundreds of companies out there. If you need some that we know can provide what we were requesting, I can send you a very short list. We don't encourage or say you have to do a particular company. If you go through your homeowners or you go through your business or any of that, it could take, I've seen as long as 2 to 3 months. The shortest is usually around 2 to 3 weeks. So that's why we really encourage you to get this done as soon as you can. So that's that first box. That second row of boxes, you'll see it says automobile liability. You'll need 1 million in general liability there as well if you want to drive inside a bollard. So basically, if you are parking in a parking lot, you don't need that insurance. But if your event is somewhere deep in a park and you're like, well, we got too much stuff, I need to be able to drive into that park, we need to have that done. Now, there are exceptions. We don't allow everybody to drive into all of our parks. It really ends up depending on which park you choose. So if that's something you need to do, you'll want to definitely check with us to make sure that it's even possible. As an example, I think it was.
I think you muted
Oops, sorry.
yourself, Carl.
Sorry, Carlson.
Can you go back about 10 seconds?
Okay, sorry about that. That's weird. It's like auto muting me. That's crazy. I was just saying, I think you guys are Othello Park is one of the options. Is that one of the options this year? Well, Othello Park is an example that you can't drive vehicles into the park. We've had too many problems with damage to the park when that's happened. So we have a few parks like that. A lot of parks we can potentially make it work. And then if you see if you go down to the second to last box there, the long one, Zach, nope, keep going down one more. Yeah, the red stuff there. So yeah, right there, that red area. So we want this blank. A lot of insurance providers will not leave it blank. And so if they write something in there, I have to review it, and that may void the insurance. So blank is great, but if they have to put something, they have to put something. Where it says certificate holder, that has to say City of Seattle. Really, that's all it necessarily needs to say. It's great if it has all the extra detail there, but City of Seattle is all it needs to say. And then the last 2 pages here, you'll see that there's 2 different documents. We call these endorsements. And on the endorsements, you'll see that one, it has a policy number section. If the endorsement has a policy number, it actually needs to say the policy number. You'd be surprised at how many of these I get that it says policy number right there and it's blank, which means it doesn't work. And then that big box there that has all the red text, basically we just want that to say City of Seattle. Insurance companies, again, will say random stuff in there. But this is really the key component of insurance, is that there are 2 documents. You have to have a certificate, which is the one we just looked at, and then we have to have an endorsement. So if you send 1 page, it will never work. It always needs to be 2 pages. So I apologize for the kind of, the boring kind of accounting version of this process, but it is definitely where people have struggled the most. And it's important that, you start on this like as soon as you're approved. Don't wait. Get going on it.
I just want to add a little bit to that. Again, none of us, I think, are insurance experts the way we need to be, like Carl said. So the best thing you can do if you're awarded is in fact to start early. I think for the most part, we understand that, everyone here, everyone that will be applying, you're going to be in, most of the time, we're experts in, our project. We know what we're doing with our project and everything we need for it, with the staff and the vendors and the volunteers and the supplies and this and that. This is something that I think a lot of people, from what we've seen, a lot of people will like overlook, and they will start late and say, oh, I'll knock out the insurance a little bit later. Nah, that needs to be like early in the process, because like Carl said, what we find, a lot of people will put it off till later in the game, and then we'll come in and say, I'm sorry, we can't permit this event for all the things Carl listed, and then we just find ourselves in a not so great place, and we have to scramble and try to figure things out, and it just makes things difficult and adds extra stress to you as an awardee as you're trying to get your event or your projects off. So please make sure you're starting very, very, very early. And then the other thing, just wanted to chime in on, like, it is very related to it, but it's very difficult to reschedule and find space and time, especially for outdoor parks, especially in those late spring and summer months. Just another tidbit here. Please do try to, the days and times you get, let's do everything we can to get them permitted, insured, so you can activate on those days, because rescheduling can be tough, because it's no guarantee you're going to get the days, times, or locations you want will be available at a later date. Another question we get a lot of times is with weather. Is people, there might be, your event is coming up in a day or two, and we're in Seattle, there's some clouds coming up in the forecast, but again, you should, in your planning, I would encourage you to try to be ready to activate, whether you got terrible weather or not. Obviously, we're not talking about real emergencies, but please have a contingency plan ready for maybe some rain. So I'm thinking maybe some tents, some this, that, and the other, because like there's no guarantee. If you try to reschedule, it could be difficult. You'd have to just do everything again. In terms of the permitting, and like Carl said, it can take weeks, sometimes months. So just wanted to add those pieces. Please just start early. One more time, start early.
Can't say it enough, because it is truly something that you don't want, this headache right before your event, where you got all the last minute details that you're trying to work on, and you don't want one of them to be insurance. So start on it early. And there is a question in here, Temesgen, about when should they apply. I think once they've been awarded, they can probably apply because then they're guaranteed, right? They still have to sign a contract, but they've got it, right?
Yeah, I think once you know you're awarded, you should get on it right away. Like submit a park application for the locations you want, the days, times. Submit your park use application, and get going on insurance.
Thank you, Parks and Rec team. I see a quick question in the chat. Applying an annual community block party. Is this something I may apply for? So if you meet the eligibility criteria, you're either based in Seattle, doing regular programming in Seattle, and or applying to have this. I mean, a block party typically isn't in a parks, but so it would just need to take place in one of the City of Seattle managed parks and one of the eligible parks for that. I hope that answers your question, Mathis. Also, related to event insurance, thank you again for your expertise, Carl and Temesgen. We stress this also because you can pay for your event insurance with the award as well. So I think and we'll get into this later in the budget part. You can include this in your in the budget as an expense. So you may want to do some research a little bit based on the scale of your event, how many days it might be, just to get a loose estimate of what that expense would be, so that you can cover it in your if you are awarded as well. Okay. Questions so far? It seems like again, continue to share questions in the chat as you'd like. Okay, so funding. So here's some things that you can and can't use for if you're awarded. So you can pay for artist fees, you can pay collaborators, you can pay performers, you can pay for marketing and promotion, you can pay for project management, which is like preparation of the event, during the event, all the things that go into producing that project, personnel costs, staffing, and then supplies and equipment rentals. So if you need to rent some tables, chairs, a PA, audio equipment, a canopy, whatever might you might need for your event. Again, as I just shared, park permits. Is actually, Temesgen or Annabelle, is the park permitting fee is waived for this program? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's waived. Yeah, I mean, if it's in a park, outdoor park, yeah, in Seattle, it's waived.
Okay. So that's kind of like a part of this program and how we can help lower those expenses for the community. And then you can use up to 10% of your award for food during the event. What you can't use your funding for is fundraising. So basically just using the award to then fundraise for more money for organization or as an individual. Any religious services, any gifts or awards. And I kind of tack on prizes here as an example of if part of your activation is like a talent show or something, and you want to give out awards or prizes to the participants, you just can't use funding for that. And then organizational administration costs, at all, but specifically not related to the Arts and Parks event. And then any purchasing of equipment. So anything that you're gonna purchase for this event and then be able to have for the rest of your for other events. So rentals are okay, but just being able to purchase equipment or anything like that isn't eligible. What is eligible if you were to purchase costumes or clothing or something for the event. That's a little bit different, but we can get into the nuance of that later. But specifically around equipment, like buying audio, like a PA, or buying a mixer or instruments or anything like that.
We've got a few questions in the chat.
Yes, thank
Going
you.
back. So one of them is from Alex. Can you submit multiple applications for different projects? For example, if one project is a collaboration with someone else and another project is a different idea you want to do on your own?
Good question, Alex. No, you're not able to submit multiple applications. So yeah, one application per applicant per grant cycle. Also can't submit you can't apply as an individual and as an and then have someone else apply as an organization for the same project. People have done that, and we do have an eligibility check process where we will ask you to withdraw one of the applications if that is the case, if there are two people collaborating and both collaborators apply for the same project. We will catch that and ask you to either take one of the applications out of the pool.
And then we got Leilani asks, what if my event is a recurring class that happens 1 to 2 times a week in regard to the insurance? Also, what if my park is not on the preferred list, but not on the non-preferred list? I want to take that first part in regards to the class being 1 to 2 times a week. When working with your insurance about your project, you should lay out exactly what you're trying to do. Like, this is what I'm doing. These are the days and times. This is some of the equipment involved. Like Carl mentioned, the bouncy house and stuff like that. You should let your insurance company know everything you're doing, your schedule, everything, and then hopefully they will help you submit an insurance that works for the type of project you're doing, because projects are different. It really does depend on what you're doing. What you're doing is your insurance will be based on the type of program you're doing. So you just got to let them know, this is what I'm up to. This is what I need to be insured for. And then let them do their insurance thing. And I'll let you take the second part in terms of what if my park is not on the preferred list, but not on the non-preferred list.
So they're thinking the first slide, but basically if there's a park that's not on either of the preferred, eligible, or ineligible, it is still eligible. And in this, I'll send out this slide deck to all the people who are registered, and there's a link to the park finder, and you can find the other parks as well. I don't know the number of how many parks there are, but we couldn't list all of them, but there are a lot of parks out there. So you are still able to propose one of those parks if they're not on that list.
And then finally, sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done.
Oh, I just saw Elizabeth's question. I was just gonna keep it going.
And then the last one from Elizabeth, what about funding for scholarships, like monetary for graduating high school or college?
Funding for scholarships are also not allowed for this program, and I think most of the arts grant programs in our department. But yeah, good questions, everyone. Okay, it looks like that's it for now. We're gonna move on to the next slide. Okay, so the evaluation criteria. This is what the panelists, the community panelists, will use to evaluate your program. So and there's a total of 53 points. So the first criteria is a clear, well-conceived project event that promotes arts and culture-based participation, plus community connections through meaningful and unique experiences. And that also demonstrates an authentic relationship to cultural community, neighborhood, or other communities of interest. The second one is about community impact. So the project/event describes meaningful efforts to be inclusive, foster community, encourage participation, reach a diverse audience, and creates accessibility, especially for those most impacted by structural racism and oppression. And then we have the feasibility of your project. So basically, can you illustrate previous experience or otherwise demonstrated capacity, such as support from experienced partners and collaborators to successfully execute the proposed project or event? The applicant also presents a clear, realistic narrative budget for the project and event. And then, as Temesgen referred to earlier, there are 3 points allocated for these preferred parks. So priority will be given to projects that take place in one or more of the preferred parks identified in the list, which may particularly benefit from increased use by the public. So that's the evaluation criteria. And it looks like we've got a couple more questions. So Alex asks, I work with an arts organization. I'm also an artist. Is it okay if the org applies for a project and I apply separately for a different project? For example, if the org wanted to do a community mural and I wanted to host a separate community mural with a friend. Good question. Murals, I'm not exactly sure how that applies to this project because murals are generally more permanent and are part of public art and are in a completely different kind of sphere. So let's talk offline about that. I'm not sure how a mural would take place in a park, but Temesgen, you want to?
Yeah, I was gonna
Yes,
chime in quickly. Like my understanding, like right now we're not doing mural like with this program. We're not doing murals that will actually go on like city property. However, if you were doing like a community mural project where you're doing it on like some canvas, with some kids or the community, that would be fine. And then maybe there's a place you want to hang it up, but the project takes place in a park. That's fine. Like if you're creating one on some canvas that you can roll up and take elsewhere, but we are not doing any like actual mural. This project won't support any like mural installations that will physically be housed in Seattle parks. I hope that answered that. Yeah.
thank you, Temesgen. And then just real quick, like the kind of the other nuance of that is um I mean an organization can apply and individuals can apply. Again, if they're different projects, that's fine. I think I would just be cautious of like how just making sure they're very distinct projects for each one of those proposals that you're submitting. Let's see, we've got thank you, Rigby, for sharing the link for the parks. Okay. Alex got it. Are nonprofits and community organizations welcome to apply? Yes. Yes, they are. Again, Mathis, as long as they're Seattle-based and or doing regular programming in Seattle. VD asks, for the feasibility portion of the evaluation criteria, will the panel award more points for applicants who have successfully executed an event in a park in the past? Not necessarily. It's a good question, but it's not like, again, that's not exactly part of the criteria. I think the feasibility is more just like, if you're looking to do a large scale event and you've never done a large, if your application doesn't show that you've done anything related to a large scale event, that might just kind of flag the panel to be like, oh, is this feasible? Does this applicant have the capacity to do that? Are they bringing in other people, partners who maybe have done these large scale events to help them? So I think that's kind of more what the feasibility is talking about. Again, if you have done events and projects in parks, I would certainly add that into your application to speak to to speak to the feasibility aspect of that. So we have from Katharina, one of my first times applying for a grant and wonder if you have samples of a strong application or if you offer assistance with grant applications. Open to any help suggestions. We don't have samples of strong applications, though we do have draft application feedback sessions later. Later in I think in November. I forget the dates specifically right now. But yeah, you can sign up for those. There's a virtual one and an in-person one at Jefferson Community Center. And you can also email me and ask for technical assistance and or just feedback. I can kind of look for eligibility and just like general feedback to give you for your application. Though, as I think in the guidelines we have, basically my capacity will be pretty limited a couple weeks leading up to the due date of November 26th. So please please request any type of feedback or assistance, mostly feedback up until like 2 weeks before. I'll be providing application assistance up until the day of the due date. Good questions. Also,
Can I take this other?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yep.
After Mathis, I wanted to respond to VD's other question.
Okay, yeah. Also, when will announcements of the grant awards be? So we'll get to that as part of the timeline, but December, January is when panelists will be paneling. And I believe late February is when the announcements will go out.
And VD had a question. What role does Parks and Rec play in the evaluation of applicants? SPR staff play no part in the evaluation of grant applicants. We are available to the panel if they have questions or concerns about any of our spaces related to someone's project. We try to answer those, but we're not we don't get to like submit scores or, make recommendations or anything like that. We are available to the panel and the Zach and his team if they need any support or have questions, concerns about our parks.
Yeah, thank you, VD. So, just the distinction of roles. So basically, the Office of Arts and Culture does the application process. We run the panel process, and then the contracting process, the invoicing process, and then the Parks and Rec team basically is they're advisors during that panel process, and then handle the contracting, or not the contract, sorry, the permitting and the insurance process. And then we've got from Benson, I'm curious if you have not run an event solely, but been part of running multiple events. Does that count? Yeah, again, we have the $2,000 level award, which I would encourage for those with maybe less history and experience putting on and producing events. That's a good entry level, kind of a good entry into institutional funding from the city, and just access point for people who are new to applying for these grants and putting on these types of projects. So I'd encourage you all to do that. But again, part of the feasibility criteria, if you don't have as much demonstrated experience for the scale and vision for the project that you're proposing, excuse me, then I would encourage you all to, bring in partners, collaborators who do have a little bit more of that demonstration experience. Okay. So I'm going to move on since that is the last of our questions right now. Okay, and we're at almost 7 o'clock, so we've got about 35 more minutes. So I'm going to kind of just do a little demonstration of the Flux application process. So many of you, many of you are familiar with Flux if you have applied for a city grant in the last 3, 4, 5 years, especially from the arts department. It's a newer online system. If you haven't applied using Flux, you will need to create a new account. And if you have received funding from the Office of Arts and Culture, just please check with staff to make sure you don't already have an account. It just keeps things easy for everybody to process your application. Okay. So what I'm going to do is kind of do a live demonstration of Flux. This is the Flux landing login page. So you'll log in. And then you want to make sure that you go to all up here at the top. And then you'll just scroll down to Office of Arts and Culture. This is where you'll see all the different grants and grant applications that are open at the department right now. Arts and Parks is the only one available right now. This information right here is guideline information. You can see the guidelines linked down here. We have the open date, which was October 15th. The close date is November 26, 2024. You can find the grant webpage here as well. And then you'll go down to this big green button to start your application process. So I'm not going to walk through every line item. There's a lot of different line items. This is kind of just a high level, again, like when the award notifications will be, my contact information, the grant guidelines link as needed. And one thing I do want to just highlight is all the all the questions in bold throughout the application are required. You'll get lots of prompts and potentially like error kind of messages if you don't fulfill any one of those required fields. So right now I'm just going to select here that I'm applying as an individual. If you are in the system, it will recognize you. There I am. And then before you can really enter the main part of the application, you do have to answer these 2 main eligibility requirements. So again, are you based in Seattle or doing active programming in Seattle? I'll say yes. And then the second one is just acknowledging that you must have a federal tax ID number in order to receive the award funds. So selecting yes for that as well. And then you can click save. And then it will give you access to the rest of the application here. So this first chunk is a lot of just contact information for you as the applicant. I'm not going to fill all this stuff out right now, but once you get past the mailing address and all that, one of the first main things that you'll want to supply, it's optional. As you can see, it's not bolded, but would highly encourage to submit an applicant website or a social media link in the guidelines. This is where this is kind of a replacement for work samples. We know that work samples can be just a barrier to applying for grants. And so, but we do want to give the panelists an opportunity to see the great work that you all are doing. So I would encourage you all to share a link to demonstrate the work that you've been doing. Again, focusing on the evaluation criteria, keep that in mind. The panelists will spend up to 2 minutes reviewing this part of your application in whatever you submit. So hypothetically, if you submit a 10-minute video, they will watch the first 2 minutes of it. Or if you submit an Instagram link or something, they'll spend up to 2 minutes reviewing that. Okay, and then so a lot of this is just kind of more profile building, your primary arts discipline, any secondary arts discipline. A lot of the grant guideline information is in here, so you can see it throughout the application, so you don't have to always refer back to the grant guidelines. And this is where you'll select if you were awarded $7,800 for either 2023 or 2024, because that'll just ping us to let us know that you need to meet that 12-hour of public programming requirement. And this is where you will submit the amount you're requesting. This text field below, again, is just you'll just write in what park you're looking to activate, and then city council districts that your events will take place in. If you're taking place in multiple parks throughout your activations, your project end and start date, and then any additional information about that seems relevant for the panelists to know. We want to know the number of event days. We want to know the number of hours of public programming, the estimated amount of participating artists, and then estimated number of paid artists as well. So we have the project event title here, and then this is kind of where we get into kind of the bulk of the application narrative part, where you'll be sharing about your project and answering the main prompts for the application. So you'll provide a brief summary of your project. You can see down here under each one of these the character limit. Unfortunately, Flux only uses characters. I know it's not a very, not everyone thinks of things in characters, but 500 characters, I just looked up before the info session, is about 70 to 125 words. So again, it's just a brief little project summary, just something you would kind of put in a community calendar is kind of how we think about that. And then your project description. Again, these are the kind of things that it went through, but you'll have 2,000 characters, which is about 280 to 500 words to elaborate on here. This is kind of describe the activities of your project for which you are seeking funds. How will you feature arts and culture in your project event? How do you envision the audience experience? You can also share details about the participating artists and presenters, technical needs, and anything else you feel is important to note. So again, you're kind of like building this case of, a realized like project and event in one of these parks. So the second one speaks to community building through arts and culture. Describe who will attend and participate in your events. How does your project use arts and culture to build community specifically? Describe what your efforts will be to be inclusive, engage diverse populations, and increase accessibility. And then we have background and capacity. share your experience and capacity for producing arts and cultural programming and activities. How will you ensure the success of your proposed project/event? You can also share details such as support from experienced partners and collaborators or other resources that will assist in the successful completion of your project/event. So all of these are pretty much all the same questions from the previous cycle with some added prompts to kind of just help remind you to speak to the evaluation criteria. And then we have the narrative budget. So the narrative budget is a realistic budget, or is a realistic budget for your project or event. It will be the total budget. If your total budget exceeds your requested Arts and Parks award amount, you may indicate any additional financial support, including additional grant funding, in-kind, non-cash donations, sponsorships, etc. Your narrative budget should reflect the total costs and expenses and incomes of your 2025 project, plus explain any context for the community panelists should know to better understand the financial feasibility of your proposal. And then income and expenses should equal and be balanced. So I have a sample of the narrative budget. You can find this. This is the landing page for the Arts and Parks program. As you can see, there's the read the guidelines here. There's a PDF and Word document version of the sample budget here that you can find. And then additionally, you can find the guidelines in all these different languages below. This is the narrative budget here. So this part is essentially what I just read about the narrative budget. I added it here so again you can see the context of it for the sample. But in the Flux application, the narrative budget is where you will share the expenses and incomes and any additional context for them. So in previous years, we had an external spreadsheet kind of template that applicants would upload into Flux. And so we're trying to simplify it this year to be a little bit more standardized across all of our programs, but also be a little bit less of a time burden on applicants to fill out. And also, any troubleshooting a lot of like technical issues with the budget not uploading or having tech issues on both sides. So this is a way that we're trying to solve for that. And I do want to stress that if awarded, you will have flexibility for the expenses and incomes as long as they meet the eligible funding details outlined in your guidelines. So essentially, you're not locked into the budget that you propose. It is just a draft budget. We just want applicants to give a realistic and just thoughtful approach to like the event that they're proposing, and they've thought through the different kind of expenses and how they're going to make this project work. So again, this is a different format, and so instead of having again like a spreadsheet, we're trying to simplify it to really just focus on a lot of the high level larger kind of expenses and incomes instead of getting too in the weeds about a lot of the expenses, which I think should hopefully be a little bit more manageable for applicants. And so we are asking applicants to kind of present their narrative budget loosely in this structure. So having the total expenses at the top, and then in parentheses, sharing like what those high level kind of expenses are. This is the hypothetical sample that I've provided for this cycle. We have $8,000 in wages, which is like staff costs, artist fees, etc. Materials for $1,000, event insurance for about $500, and then in-kind marketing expenses with $500. And so the way that this additional context kind of works in this sense is that I've shared that wages will pay for our 10 musicians and dancers for 5 rehearsals and 2 days of performances, as well as staff logistical costs before and during the events. Materials would pay for rented audio gear, tables, chairs, and canopies, and then marketing will cover flyer design, printing, and outreach. And then again, on the flip side of that is we're asking for income. How are you going to pay for these expenses? Of course, you'll want to include the assumption that you get the Arts and Parks Award to execute the project. So we have, in this example, receiving $8,000 for the Arts and Parks Award. Maybe you contribute $1,000 on your own, and then there's a $500 sponsorships from community organizations or nonprofits, and then we gave an example of some in-kind marketing. So again, the additional context to kind of narrate these incomes is we're anticipating $500 in sponsorships from community partners we've been working with for several years. Plus, we will be getting our marketing services donated by XYZ company. So that's just like one example of like what this could be. And then as you'll see back in the application, there are specific fields to fill out. The project expenses, the cash, non-cash, and then the income, cash, and non-cash. So this will essentially just be the same thing that you put in your narrative budget text field, but you'll just be pulling out these numbers right here. And then that's the main content of the application. There are then we just ask some general questions about how did you hear about the opportunity. There is a demographics section. This is not something that the panel will see or evaluate any of the applicants on. This is just for internal purposes. It is required. However, there are options for every single question to decline to state if you are not interested in providing any of that. So you'll see some of them are bold, but all of them will have some type of decline to state answer for them. Okay, it's a lot of information. I'm going to pause. I just wanted to kind of cohesively kind of talk about all of those things together. And let's see, where are we at in the chat?
Could I chime in on that last piece?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, again, none of that information is in people's, individual, information is shared. However, it does help us, tell the story of how funds are getting used and help us better, help us make, better, more informed decisions about how these funds get used in the future. Because it allows us to see like who we've been serving with the funds, and if we've identified communities and neighborhoods and populations that are being underserved, it does help us to say, hey, how can we be better about maybe promoting to a community that we're just not seeing in the pool. So we do our best to use that information again to better serve the public in the future.
Yes, thank you, Temesgen, and important details about that information. So yeah, and we use that information to just make sure we know who we're serving, and again gaps in populations, communities, and so thank you, Temesgen.
There's a question here
Yes.
from Arlene. If we request a higher award, is it possible we'd receive a lower award than requested?
That is possible. As someone who's been kind of seeing how some of the awardees have requested the top a certain amount, and the panel decides to award them a smaller amount that is possible. I think also if, again, there's that requirement that if you've received the $7,800 in the last 2 years, so either 2023 or 2024, and you propose and you're asking for the $8,000 award, yet you're not proposing anything, you're not proposing the 12-hour minimum, we will, it's up to the discretion of the panel and the project manager to award a lower rate based on those requirements. Or if the panel decides that the proposal and doesn't meet necessarily is not proportional to the award amount, they might recommend a lesser amount. Good question.
We got some questions from VD. I don't know if you see them.
I'm trying to catch up and see where we left off here.
I responded to a few
okay, thank you.
via chat, but there's a few from VD just after that.
Okay. The narrative budget. Will the evaluation panelists award more points to the applicant if they have additional outside funding for the project? No, not necessarily. Again, it's more about the feasibility. Again, if let's see, award more points to the applicant if they have additional outside funding. No, I mean, again, it's really just in whatever scenario, what is that feasibility of the project? And again, you'll want to have a balanced budget, so you'll want your income and expenses to balance out. It doesn't matter if you have all in-kind donations helping supplement the expenses, or if you have outside funding. Those are not necessarily weighted more than the other. Question 2, how much money total has been budgeted by the city of Seattle for the Arts and Parks program? What is the total bucket? It's a good question. I'll answer that. So as you all may know, we're currently in the budgeting process, so we do not have a specific confirmed amount of funding for this. So we will be waiting till the budget passes to have a better understanding of where we're at. I can share historically last year there was about $207,000 and about 35 recipients from last cycle. Second part of that question, does the money come from both Arts Department and Seattle Parks and Rec, or just Arts? I guess you'll get paid by the Office of Arts and Culture if that's the question at hand. Well, Office of Arts and Culture handles all of your payment requests, invoicing, and all that stuff. So you'll get paid through Arts. Temesgen, is there anything else you wanted to share about that?
No, I was just gonna echo what you said before that. Yeah, we'll get more details about where 2025's funds will come from after this budget process concludes.
Yes. Question 3, I think it's for parks. Can we get the sample insurance template now so we can get a quote for insurance companies and put that in our budget? I believe so. Yeah. What I just sent out or what Carl just sent to me, is that I believe that's what they're asking for. We can send that out. Yeah. I'll send that out with the slide deck. Okay. Zanab, $8,000 is the maximum award. Okay, thank you. Alex, is an important part of being considered whether or not the applicant is providing wages to other workers. So that was just an example. Again, every project is different. I think if you have people participating in the event, generally panelists like to not see that people are doing free labor in general. So I think it's part of the process to consider paying people. That's going to be up to them and how what particular wages are involved in that scenario. Um, in general, I think, yeah, if people are involved, unless they're volunteers and you want to add that in as an in-kind donation of their time, I would nuance that. It could, um, and panels I've been involved in and over the years, I think it's definitely a factor if it's unclear whether people who are participating are getting paid or not. I would add it in if they are getting paid. It is something that panelists generally have questions about. Yeah. Okay. Good question, Joel. We've got about 10 minutes here, and most of these slides actually just decided to kind of loop in the live demo of it all. So again, these are all just kind of snapshots of the application. I'm not going to really bore you with all this stuff again, but this is mostly for the slide deck so that you have it and you can kind of walk yourself through. Again, project information, we went through all of this in the live application aspect of it. It's here for you again to follow up on. Here's the narrative budget. Narrative budget again. Here's a sample. In the slide deck, I do have a link to the narrative budget here. Again, it's on the web page, and we'll send out that information as well. Oh, one thing I did forget. As you're going through Flux, please just save as you're going along. I'll mention this in the next slide, I believe, but I always encourage applicants as a best practice to write all of your application material language in a separate word processing document so that you have it, so that you don't lose it. It's happened to me. I've heard all the horror stories, people losing information and having to rewrite their application. We don't want that. That's never fun. So always, save while you're going through the application in case something happens with internet or whatever might happen, but also just write all your answers in a word processing document so you have them and you can use them for other grants, and you can use them again as you'd like. Okay, we got a couple more questions here. Will you send all the info you talked about to our email? Yes. For those who have registered, I have your emails. If you're on here and you did not register, can reach out to me and ask for the slides, or you can put your email in the chat if you feel comfortable. BD, can you provide a guideline for the number of hours of public programming for each tier? Thank you for this question. This, as the new project manager coming into this, this is something that I was hoping to add into this application. Just didn't get to it, and I have to do a whole data project around what that's like. But so there's right now currently no specific breakdown or guidelines or kind of bumpers for what each tier kind of breaks down in terms of participants or hours. I think that's really just going to be up to you. At this point, I don't. I think yeah, making that call will be up to you. But for next cycle, I think there might be some more transparency and helpful information about what are kind of more good fits for each tier in terms of hours. That is a good question. Thank you for asking that. It is something that is on our radar. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mathis, for the email. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have, so again, we're almost done. Some just kind of application to do, some tips. Please read the guidelines. They are your best friend in this process. Check your eligibility, and then follow the online instructions carefully. Explore the online application early, familiarize yourself with it, and again, consider drafting application responses in a separate document and then bringing them into the Flux application. Attend an info session. Yay, you've already done that. Now, update or complete your profile at the Flux website. Again, you can talk with me, the project manager for this, about any questions that you have to help inform a strong application, an eligible application. Be clear and concise in your application. Panelists do read and evaluate a lot of these, and so the more clear and concise you can be, while also being detailed and fleshing out your vision, is important. Save your work as you go, and then submit your application before the due date, so you have so you don't encounter any technical issues that might prevent you from submitting. There is a hard deadline, November 26th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, to submit this. We do not accept applications after this time. The application will be officially closed at 5 p.m. So please get your application in early. Again, as I mentioned, December and January, application will be reviewed by our community review panel, an independent peer review panel, and decisions and evaluations are based on the review criteria. February 2025 is when notifications will go out, most likely late February. And then February through April will be the contracting, permitting, and paperwork process with parks. May through November is when events and project activations take place. And then within the 30 days following the event, or by November 30th, you'll need to submit your final report and your invoices. And believe it or not, that is the last slide. This is thank you all. This is not a reimbursement-based grant. None of the grants at the Office of Arts and Culture are reimbursement-based, so you will not be providing receipts. You will be, if awarded, you'll have a final report that will share, what services that you provided, etc. Based on your project, but it is not a receipt-based award or reimbursement process. Again, as the awardee, you will want to keep your receipts and documents for your own auditing purposes, but we do not collect those. Thankfully, now for both our sakes and your sakes as well. Okay, so yeah, there's been great questions throughout. We've got a couple minutes. Are there any last minute questions? Anything that anyone feels they haven't been answered? Here's my email here. Please do reach out to me if you have any questions about applying, and I'll be happy to answer those. Again, we have some draft application feedback sessions. I should have put them here, but they are in the guidelines, which, let's see if I can find those. So draft application feedback session. There's a virtual one November 13th from 12 to 1:30, and then an in-person one Saturday, November 16th from 10 to 12 at Jefferson Community Center. Last question. Do we hold the events first, then get reimbursed by the grant? Yes. The events happen and then you get paid out. There is an option for an advance payment up to 50% of your award amount for prep and for the preparation of your event. So if you had a $4,000 grant, you could submit an initial payment request of up to $2,000 for preparation of your event. Any other questions? Thank you all for sticking around. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for your interest in applying. Thank you again to the Parks and Recreation team for their support. And yeah, looking forward to seeing your applications. I'll let you all enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you all. Take care. And stop recording.